Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall
What's going on, everybody?
and Michael Reed. Is that Randy Savage? Is that what that is?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I like the intro. I like the
I like
intro music.
the intro this week. That was good. And we're also joined by the very special guest, VIP guest, and Ian Bacon from across the pond. It's 11 o'clock where Ian is right now. Let's give a clap for Ian. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for
cheers,
joining
guys,
us.
thank you for asking me to be on it, sir. It's great. Thanks very much.
Oh, of course. And we're going to get into the accent war here that we've had between the guys across the pond and us, Ian. But I want to kind of go into you a little bit. I want to kind of find out you as a Redskins fan. So I would like to
Sure.
when did you start becoming a Redskins fan? Was there something about the Redskins that pulled you to them? Was it a player or a certain time period, whatever have you? Kind of explain your Redskins fandom to us.
Yeah, so I first came across NFL in about 1985 when it was first really shown over here in the UK on Sundays on Channel 4. And it was it was the 85 season. And they did a lot of focus that year as the season went on the Chicago Bears, actually, because they got to the Super Bowl that year and they beat the Pats, and it was all about, Mike Ditka and Walter Payton and William the Refrigerator Perry and all of that. But when it first started, I don't know if there was if they did a documentary on every team or if it was just one documentary on the whole league. But I just remember seeing this snapshot of the Redskins and about Coach Gibbs and Joe Theismann and Art Monk, and it was really Art Monk that sort of struck out to me, his athleticism, etc. And from then on, it was the Redskins. There was a UK Washington Redskins fan club at the time, so I was a member of that, and I used to go and see the London Monarchs play every so often. And then I sort of drifted away from it a little bit in the sort of early to mid 90s, I guess, because coverage over here sort of tailed off a little bit. And after the Super Bowl wins, yeah.
Lucky you missed out on Heath Shore.
But then as Sky started showing it more, and there's a twice weekly show on the BBC as well when the season's on with Jason Bell and Osi Manura, when that sort of started really getting reinvigorated over here, my interest regained really, and I went to see the game when they played over at Wembley, and when they played the Bengals, and really it's just gone on from there really.
Yeah, and so you were able to see a lot more of the glory days than we were. Myself, I was born in '90, so I was kind of, by the time I realized what was going on, it was really depressing stuff was happening.
Same here, yeah. Right around then is when Snyder took over, and it's all. I do always find it interesting though, people who weren't born in the DC area, how they became Redskins fans. Like the craziest story, obviously that's an awesome story. You just so happened that you ended up picking them, but Matthew McConaughey, he's from the Texas area. He became a Redskins fan because his entire family was Cowboys fans, and he noticed one thing giving when they were playing the Redskins, that the Redskins had a player with the last name Hamburger, and he was like, well, a hamburger is my favorite food. So ever since then he loved the Redskins, and it's just so weird that Matthew McConaughey liked them because Chris Hamburger had a badass last name.
Right. And so Ian, I asked the same question to Burrows, and so I'm going to ask the same question to you. Have you been to the States to see the Redskins play at all?
No, I've never been to the States at all. So, so no, the only time I've seen them play is when I was over at Wembley for the Bengals game, as I say.
On the tie.
I wasn't aware of the tweet team then either, so I didn't do the meet up, and I didn't know Burrows then. And it's only really in the last 4 or 5 months that me and Andy have actually realised that we live a 5-minute walk away from each other.
No way.
If we weren't on lockdown, he'd probably be sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Right.
We literally, there's at the top of my road, there's a school, there's a big playing field for the school. I live on one side of it, Andy lives on the other.
No way. Yeah, I know that when I was on the podcast on Sunday on the Redskins Tweet Team podcast, make sure you guys go check that out. Burrows, the UK-based,
Very good
obviously,
podcast.
started the podcast, and he's done a great job with it. So go make sure you
Yeah,
go follow
absolutely.
that. And he talked about on Sunday how it was earlier that morning. He went to the convenience store and he saw you standing out front,
Yeah, I was
coincidentally.
standing outside. We had a good chat. We did. Yeah, it was strange. I just saw him walking along. So yeah, we had a good chat about the Redskins.
Right, and so we have I asked a couple fan questions for people out there, and Redskins Raw on Twitter wants us to go, and I'll go to Hall first with this. Your favorite player, one offense and one defense that could that you think will have a breakout season this year.
Well, first off, I'll go defense, and I don't want to say he's my favorite player, but I do think he'll have a breakout year. Excuse me. And I think it's going to be Landon Collins. I think that Landon Collins is going to be obviously the head of the defensive backfield and maybe even team captain. He's a great leader. He's an athletic player, and I think that Jack Del Rio is going to get him back to, I think, what was his rookie year or his second year, where he was all over the field playing.
Second year in the league where he was all pro.
All pro. And I think that Del Rio and Rivera are going to harness that second year back into him. And I think they'll have great things coming up in 2020. And offensive-wise, I'll go Dwayne Haskins, because I think that he has a huge Pringle-sized chip on his shoulder coming in. Maybe even a double duck size, people do the duck face with the Pringles. Chip on his shoulder, and I just think he hears all the criticism. He's lost all that weight, putting in the work in the gym, and he's been throwing with receivers here and there whenever he can. So I just think that, I think Dwayne Haskins is poised for a breakout year just based off of last year, but I also think he'll be within that 12 to 16 ranges of top quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and those are good two selections, because that of the changes that happened to the coaching staff, those two players should benefit the most out of anybody, and I have to agree with you there. So Ian, if you had to pick two people, one offense, one defense this year that you thought were going to have a breakout season, who would they be?
Well, offense, I agree with Haskins. I think he's got possibly a lot to prove, probably a lot to prove to himself, let alone anyone else. I think he as long as he doesn't feel the weight on his shoulders too much that we're all putting on him, I think he should have a breakout season. And for defense, it might be a bit of an odd pick, but I'm going to say Ryan Kerrigan. And the reason I say that is he hasn't had the best couple of years, the previous years, by his own excellent standards, and quite a few of the press are picking him off in the sense that you're not going to play much. Chase Young's come in. You're only going to be a bit part player.
Yeah.
Has got the record sacks just within touching distance of him.
Oh yeah.
And I think he's going to become actually a more lethal weapon for us than he has been before. I'm going with Ryan Kerrigan.
Yeah, that's a really good selection, and that probably would be a very underrated take, and I think that's actually a great one, because like you were elaborating, Ryan Kerrigan, with him coming off the bench, he's going to have the ability to just go after the passer, and so there's a good chance that he could be getting a lot of sacks this year, in relief being one of those bullets in the chamber. But for me personally on defense, I think it's John Bostic. There's a reason why they went and gave him a new contract, and I think Jack Del Rio likes him a lot. He's going to be using a lot of these packages, and he's going to be able to be a weapon in the passing game and the running game. We're trying to get everyone set up and ready to go. So I think John Bostic would be a great selection there. And then on offense, I think it's Steven Sims. He ended the season on a hot streak. I think it was, I forget his name, Nick Simpson on Twitter. He put out a tweet that in the last 4 games, if you were to project it out with Steven Sims, it would be on pace for like 60 receptions for, I think, or 120 receptions for like 900 yards and like 7 touchdowns would have been his prolonged results from last year. And so I think Steven Sims is going to continue that hot streak with Dwayne Haskins this season. I think that would be the good pick. What about you, Reed?
I like all those. I especially like the Ryan Kerrigan one, because a lot of people say, well, he's one of the Redskins' all-time leading sack record holders. How can that's within grasp? How can you consider him a breakout? And it's because at this point in his career, he's perfect for this role that he's going to be in, coming in behind Chase Young, like you were saying, and only being available on passing downs, I think he could really make an impact. But I'm going to go with Fabian Moreau. I've talked about it before on this. When Fabian Moreau got moved to the outside for Josh Norman, he played very well. He had 3 interceptions, and he was just always in position to make a play. It's a contract year coming up for him. I don't think that they didn't go out and sign a Byron Jones, or some of these other guys. So I think that they are comfortable with him, and with that defensive line up there, it'll allow him to use his athleticism and his size, which we've talked about. Kyle, it's perfect for a boundary cornerback coming out. We think he was kind of miscast on the inside, and having Kendall Fuller will allow him to play outside. And then offense, I'm going to switch it up. It's a little tough for me. I want to say Darius Geis, but because we just see how much talent he has. He's such a freak, but the injuries still scare me. He's been injured in college, and then of course you come to the NFL and you're still getting injured. So I'm going to go with Logan Thomas. A lot of people aren't talking about Logan Thomas, but Logan Thomas is still fairly raw. He's still learning the position of tight end, but he's got all of the traits that you look for. In fact, if you were to take his combine when he came out as a quarterback and put those numbers up against the tight ends from this draft class, he would have been easily the most athletic tight end in this draft. They're up there with Albert Okwuegbunam. Just with his vertical jump, his 40, he's got the perfect frame for it, perfect size. He's a former quarterback. He knows what quarterbacks like to do. He knows what he would look for in a tight end and a safety blanket. And I think a lot of people just aren't really considering him enough, and I think that he could really make some noise in this offense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good selection by you, and that's a smart one with Fabian Moreau, especially because off of his tape, his film in college, he did really well. He had a natural feel for the sideline. So what he would do is he had a great job of playing corner on fade routes, being able to use the sideline as another defender. So he did really well there. So that's why putting him in the slot kind of messed with him, because he didn't have that kind of comfortable blanket of the sideline with him. So that's why I think he did a lot better last year. Now,
and
Reed,
that was
sorry.
Me and you talking when we first started this podcast. That was the first year when we covered the draft, was the year that he came out, Kyle. And I remember we were talking about players to watch that the Redskins could possibly draft, and Fabian Moreau was somebody who got brought up. And we both were saying, after watching his film, he has the body, he has the speed, he has everything that you want in a boundary corner. And the way that he plays, he's not going to be inside, he's got to play outside. And of course, leave it to Monusky to kind of leave him inside to get exposed. And I think he could have a real big year on the outside. People are underestimating.
Yeah, absolutely. But Reed, let me stay with you, because Burrows actually had a question for us, and it's a huge if. Huge if. He doesn't want to say that, he wants to stress that a lot. But if they did change the name, what would be a name that you would like them to change it to, Reed?
Well, like we kind of touched on last episode, the Red Spears one, like we said, I have no idea with the spear symbol. You can stick with the R. It's not too different. You can still have the native culture embraced. You can still have all of these things, but if not, maybe going back to like the Braves or something, or the Boston Braves. But Washington Braves sounds kind of weird, so I'm going to go with something that sticks along with the Native American tradition. And I guess Red Spears was a good one. It's just I have no idea what a red spear is, so I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't want them to change it up. I don't want them to change their color scheme, and become something like the Nationals or the Capitals, where they have to represent DC and be red, white, and blue. I don't want that.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe Washington Warriors. I don't know.
Yeah, Red Spears is a good one. What about you, Ian? Do you have a name in mind that you would like to see?
No, not really. I can't get beyond the Redskins at the moment, if I'm honest. I can't think of them being called anything else.
Right.
So, no, I haven't really sort of thought about that. I did see the question that you put up. Perhaps the place for me and Andy live is called Leighton Buzzards. Perhaps they could be the Washington Buzzards. I don't know.
Washington shapeshifters.
Right. But I've said for years, I think that if they ever are going to change the name, the one that I would be okay with is the Washington Warriors. And the reason why I say that is because they would be able to keep the logo, they'd be able to keep the uniform, they'd be able to keep the color schemes, and you can't say it's a negative because they're honoring the Native American symbol.
Somebody will find a way to turn it into a negative.
Right, I know.
How dare you call him a warrior? How dare he was a
jerseys are
pacifist.
still the color
He was a
of his
peaceful
skin.
man.
He was a pacifist.
No, but in all seriousness, I think that would be the best and most logical thing
That's
that
a
they
good
could
name.
do, and,
Yeah.
and it flows, it goes well together. But and honestly, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world if they had to change their name and everything in the color scheme, the red, white, and blue that going on with the whole DC kind of flow of things right now, of all DC sports. I wouldn't mind that color scheme because I love those colors. I think the Redskins do well,
so
but
can't even
did
really
the
do it.
Giants.
But
You can't even
I-
really do that because the
Yeah.
Giants and the
Right.
Patriots, they're both kind of
Right.
I know,
like,
but no, I know. I'm
and
just
the
saying.
Bills and
I'm
all
just
these
saying. I'm just saying
things,
those
you know?
colors. It wouldn't kill me.
No, yeah, you're
I'm
just
just
saying, but I'm just saying.
But obviously the color scheme should never change because obviously the
Yeah.
burgundy and gold. are
Burgundy
something
and gold,
perfect.
man. It just reminds me
So-
of the Redskins.
So
Absolutely.
let me go to you, Hall. Is there a name that you would kind of like if the Redskins change their name to?
I mean, if it ever came down to it, which I'm hoping it doesn't, because again, like everyone said, it just doesn't even sound right calling them anything other than the Washington Redskins.
Right.
But like you said, it would, I guess, be the Warriors because it rolls off the tongue. Just all the points you made, you can keep the logo, you can keep the color scheme, hopefully, blah blah blah. So, I mean, if it came down to anything, Washington Warriors, but obviously, I would hope it stays the Redskins.
Yeah. And speaking of Warriors, regarding the Redskins, it looks like Jamal Adams has been put on the trade block. So I'll go with you, Hall. Let's say the Jets call up Ron Rivera right now, and you're Ron Rivera. What would you be willing to give up to go get Jamal Adams right now?
Yeesh. Man. Seeing how the Jets are still a kind of a growing building team, would have to be some draft picks. Obviously, Jamal Talent's a first-round pick, so it would have to be a first-rounder in next year's draft in 21.
I don't think so. I don't think it has to be that high because Jamal Adams
Right.
is the one requesting the trade. So that
Yeah,
means that
right,
he's
sure.
willing to sit out, and that means that his their leverage is lost.
Yeah, but he's such a diehard, just kind of one of those guys that just like bleeds and like breathes football. I don't think it would come to him sitting out. I think he would just play the contract out and be like, "Peace, I'm not coming back."
Well, I think he's that much of
Yeah.
a talent where a team would just throw up a first rounder to get him as well. I
Also,
think,
that
yeah.
too. That's what I'm saying. He's a first-round talent. So
Yeah.
definitely, well, I'm not gonna say definitely, but a first-round pick in 2021, and maybe even a second, maybe a third or a fourth. Not with the second, just like maybe a first and a second, if not the second, a first and a third or a fourth. Just because he's that type of game-changing caliber talent, and I mean, honestly, if only because the Redskins are still kind of building, I wouldn't want them to do that. And we just signed all these other safeties in the offseason, so it would be kind of just working backwards. But I wouldn't be mad if they did do it though.
No, I
Right.
would absolutely love it, and I think that a fifth rounder coupling it with Ryan Anderson, maybe trying to package him in there, I think would probably be the best aspect right now because you trying to keep those draft picks as much as you can. But look, if I have to send over a third and Ryan Anderson and a fifth next year to get it done, then I'm doing it, dude. I'm sending that
Oh,
over,
yeah,
but
right.
I obviously think that somebody is going to be offering something better than that for Jamal Adams. I'm just hoping it's not the Cowboys.
I mean,
So
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, look out for the Cowboys.
That
because
they're the
he
people
said he
who've
wants to
been
play
linked
there,
forever.
and there's always
Yeah.
been those rumors. So
and the Eagles also just let go of Malcolm Jenkins in the offseason. So
Right.
Ian, what would you give up for Jamal Adams to come play for the Redskins?
Yeah, I agree with Hall. I think it'd be something like a first and a third, or something along those lines. When I first saw it pop up, because it only sort of went live about an hour ago, didn't it?
Yeah.
When I saw it pop up, I thought, would it be a good fit for us? But I guess it's a nice headache for the coaches to have to try and fit him into the team. Because again, I agree with what you said. We've just made all these draft picks, and the coaches are just getting used to the squad, and vice versa. So would it be a good thing or not? But certainly a player of his talent would be an amazing addition to the squad. It's just, if it wasn't to be us, then yeah, we wouldn't want it to be the Eagles or the Cowboys, obviously.
Yeah, and look, I'm just saying if they were able to add Jamal Adams to this secondary, I mean, it's lights out at that point because your personnel decisions are so easy after that, and you have somebody that you can legitimately say added to the secondary could possibly be the most talented secondary they've had since Sean Taylor was rocking a Redskins jersey. And I think that that's something that needs to be done because with the pass rush that they do, I know that we've talked about with Jamal Adams that he's kind of the same kind of game mindset and kind of the same player as Landon, kind of in the box safety. But I still think Jamal Adams as free safety is better than anything that we've got right now. I will stand by that. So let me go back to you, Reed. What would you be willing to give up for him?
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with it. Is, of course, obviously, I could say this now, but if we were to trade for Jamal Adams and we gave up like a first round pick or something, I could say it before it happened. I'd be upset. After it happened, I'd be like, we got fucking Jamal Adams. I'm okay with it. It's all good. Jamal Adams, he does play very similar to Landon Collins, where he makes his money closer to the line. He's one of the best tackling safeties in the NFL. He's a very good blitzer. But he can cover too. He can definitely extend the field, and he can play free safety more so than Landon Collins can. So, I mean, those two together would just be a fantastic duo. But I just think that this team has so many holes, and it really just kind of depends where it's like if we trade for Jamal Adams or we trade a first round pick, which is what it's kind of appearing like it's it would have to be for somebody in their prime, arguably the best safety in the NFL. And we end up having a high first round pick, then to me, it's not worth it. If you can get somebody like a Penei Sewell from Oregon, who's just the best left tackle prospect to come along in so long, you could kind of solidify the left side of the line. If you could slide Sadiq Charles in, unless who knows, he takes over at left tackle and plays great. But or one of these good young receivers coming out like a Jamar Chase, and you could have had them, but you got Jamal Adams. I would be a little bit upset, but if we're finishing middle of the road or back, then I would just be like, okay, fuck it. That's fine with me. I mean, we're not going to find somebody in the first round at that point, really, that's going to have as much of an impact as Jamal Adams. So it depends, and it's tough. Either way, I would end up being okay with it, no matter what they do, just because he's that talented of a player. He's that elite of a player, and he is one of the top 2-3 safeties in the NFL.
Yeah,
and he's still entering his prime.
And I will say, after doing all the film breakdowns that I've done, the left tackle class is stacked next year's draft. There is a lot of guys out there, and I will stand by this to this day.
Jackson, a big drop off.
I know Jackson Carman.
Sewell.
Jackson Carman should be a top 10 pick. The Clemson left tackle, I watched him go up against Chase Young. The dude is very, very good. And I think he reminds me a lot of Trent Williams. I'm just saying.
That's who Sewell reminds me of as well. Yeah. No, I like Jackson Carman. Don't get me wrong. I also think that there's guys like Sam Cosmi and Walker Little who could bump up their draft grade and become higher picks as well. But I'm with you. He does. He's athletic and he's strong and he's big and he's quick and nimble. What more can you ask for a left tackle? I can see the Trent comparison.
And speaking of nimble, the NFL just released earlier today that Hard Knocks is going to be filmed in LA featuring the Rams and the Chargers. And so
that was so nimble of them.
Right. And it makes me wonder. The reason I say nimble, Reed, is because the Chargers announced that they were open to Colin Kaepernick being on their working out list. And so my point sitting here thinking is, did they release that just to get their name in the media before they released that they were going to do Hard Knocks? So let me get your reaction to that, Reed.
Yeah, of course I'm excited. As you know, Kyle, I love Hard Knocks. I've always loved Hard Knocks. It's going to be weird with two teams because I heard Grant Polson say earlier on 106.7, if you're not going to dive a foot into each one of these teams, are you only going to dive 6 inches into each one, as opposed to diving a full 12 inches into one of these teams? So it'll be interesting. The Rams were on there the Rams were on Hard Knocks just a few years ago in Jack Fisher's last year. So it's Jeff Fisher's last year. I'm sorry. So it's going to be weird, but I'm excited to see the Chargers. Chargers have so many good young players, with Justin Herbert coming in there. And then you got guys like Keenan Allen that for some reason isn't as big as he should be. And, Derwin James, Melvin Ingram, their secondary is fantastic. They're stacked. They've got a very good team that I'm interested in seeing. So I love it. I like the idea.
And if they sign Colin Kaepernick, that's going to be a must watch TV. And the NFL knows what they're doing there. So let me go to you, Ian. What did you think about the Hard Knocks release of going to be featuring the LA teams?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit strange at first to see that it was 2 teams as opposed to one that you normally get every year. But yeah, taking into account, I hadn't actually thought about the Kaepernick thing, even though I'd seen that the Chargers had expressed an interest. If he does sign for them, and it sounds like he might do now, but because of this, it would be a fascinating watch, wouldn't it, to see how he how he trains with the team and how he is, just generally. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. And any insight you get into the behind the scenes of any team's interesting anyway. But to have two would be really good. But like Reed just said, you want them to do it properly on both teams, just not half-hearted as there's two teams instead of one.
Yeah, and I wonder how deep we're actually going to be able to view these teams, given with the whole quarantine and social distancing. How much are we really going to be able to gauge and what's going on with the NFL right now? What about you, Mike? I know that you're a big Sean McVay guy. I know we all are, and we're excited to see what that Rams offense looks like. And look, I'm a Virginia Tech fan. I'm excited to see how Tyrod looks in this Chargers offense. Without Melvin Gordon, by the way, without Phillip Rivers. So it's going to be exciting to see how they roll out with Anthony Lynn running the ship there. What do you think about that news?
Yeah, I mean, it actually wasn't really a surprise to me because if you guys actually really think back, I know it's been a long March, April, and May. It's felt like 3 years, more than 3 months.
Yeah.
But they said back like in March or April, whatever it was, that Hard Knocks was probably going to be 2 teams and it was going to be LA teams.
Oh.
So obviously it was going to be like the Rams and the Chargers. Those were the 2 rumors. But fast forward, everyone kind of forgot about that because of everything going on. But, yeah, I mean, I love it. Like Reed said, a lot of personalities on the Chargers. I'm happy that Keenan Allen's probably finally going to get a little bit of shine because, again, he's one of those top 3 to 5 receivers, 5 to 6 receivers in the league. That's always, when healthy, obviously, top 5 or 6 in the league. And, yeah, just going along with the Rams. There's a couple new faces on the Rams, a couple old faces from the last episode.
Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
He's a character.
Aaron Donald. It's going to be fun.
Aaron Donald. Yeah, they brought in Chris Harris from the Broncos.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that secondary is going to be probably like one of the prominent people shown because they're such a great group. Like, all 3 people, all positions, all cornerbacks.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just happy to see Hard Knocks. I love Hard Knocks. Like Ian said, I love seeing behind the scenes. I love seeing like what they do in their daily lives, just like because, if they're like regular everyday people like us or not.
Right.
And I like to see the work that they put in. And also I like to see the underdogs that they bring out in every episode to see if they're going to make the team or not. So I always kind of root for them. So I can't wait.
I'm sorry, Kyle, but that's another thing. Are they really even going to be able to get into many underdog storylines doing 2 teams at a time, because usually it's like they'll show the stars and then they'll show the underdogs and they're diving real deep into one team. But with 2 teams, you can only have half the time for each.
Maybe they might have a couple episodes, maybe a couple episodes longer, and they might do 1 episode Chargers.
That's true. They should do that. Yeah. Double it up. Make it twice as long.
More money for NFL, more episodes, more money.
Yeah.
And look, and when it comes to the NFL, I'm not selfish. More is better, please. Let me get as much as I can. Let me get some of that. And seeing those matchups, seeing Sean McVay going against Anthony Lynn, seeing that defense facing the Rams offense, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm excited to get that rolling out. But now, guys, is the fun part of the podcast episode. We're going to walk into story time here. And I'm judging by Hall's face, I'm going to let Hall go first because Hall's story, I haven't heard this one yet. So I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, this is like a super, super, super throwback. I was probably like 19, maybe even 18, probably 18 actually. And up in Mount Airy.
Just legal enough.
Yeah, exactly. Just illegal enough to get into the club.
Mm-hmm.
But actually,
yeah.
Fast forward the story a little bit. We're actually going to the club by the end of the story. But so I'm like 18 at the time. I'm up in Mount Airy hanging out at my cousin's house. Both of my cousins live in the same neighborhood right across the street from each other. So all 3 of us are almost the same age pretty much, like give a year and a half apart between the 3 of us. So we kind of like close-knit, everything like that, a little bit of backstory. So, yeah, we used to like get it in like at an early age, So we used to love Bacardi Gold back in the day. I don't know why. It's disgusting if you think about it.
Yeah, we all drink weird shit.
Yeah.
I used to drink Bacardi all day.
So we're just like chugging Bacardi Gold throughout the day, slamming beers, and about like 5 o'clock comes around, and for some reason we decided, hey, let's walk down the street and go to the basketball courts. So we go down the street to the basketball courts. We're like balling out, blah blah blah. With literally, I can remember dribbling up the court with like a fifth of Bacardi Gold in my hand, just like sipping it while I'm dribbling up the court. So yeah, we go back to my cousin's house after like an hour or so of playing basketball. Everyone showers up. They're like, hey, we got these two chicks that are trying to like hang out. We're all just turned 18, 19, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's go to the club out in Baltimore. So I'm like, oh, my first time going to the club. Hell yeah. So, yeah. So we had to like make a cut list of like, there were so many people at my cousin's house. We were like, yeah, we got to make a cut list. Ended up being me, my cousin, and this other dude, Nick, which it's a whole nother ridiculous story behind that dude. But it's another story for another day. So fast forward a little bit. I don't even know because I can't really remember anything that happened in between this time. But for some reason, the next thing I remember, I am in like another backstory. There's a shed in my cousin's backyard. That's where we used to like go to chill at, you know what I'm saying? So they had like a bench press in there and like some weights. So that's where I was like our chill spot at. So for some reason, I decided like, I'm going to bench press before we go out to the club, you know, get some gains in, try to buff up for the chicks about to pull up. So, yeah, I was so drunk that apparently I was like chilling. I couldn't push it up. And I'm just laying there just like, ugh. So my younger cousin, who's like 14 at the time, walks in and is like, Mike, what the hell? Pulls it up, puts it back on the rack. And I'm just like laughing like, ha. And he's just like, dog, you've been in here for like 10 minutes by yourself. That been on your chest the whole time? I was just like, I guess so. I don't know. So I keep going throughout the night. Finally, the chicks get here. We get into the car. It's the two chicks in the front seat. Shout out to Odessa and Whitney. They're never going to see this. So it's me in the middle, the dude Nick on the right of me, my cousin on the left. I'm just like, at this point, just like I said in the chat earlier, just plastered drunk, just like ridiculous. We're on the highway going to Baltimore. We're about 2 exits away from the exit, and the club's like right off the exit. So we're about 10 to 12 minutes away. And then that time comes that everyone's had in their life where you're just like, oh man, I'm not feeling too good right now.
Oh no.
So I turned to like my cousin who's like just as lit as me. And I'm just like, yo, like, can we switch spots? I think I got to throw up. He's like smoking a cigarette, like, nah, man, get out my face. I'm just like, so I turn to the right. I'm like, Nick, like, dog, I'm sick, man. Like, I'm about to Earl. Like, let me switch seats. He's like, nah, man, we're almost there. You're good. You're good. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm not good. Like, let me sit there. And he's like, nah, man, just hold it. We're 5 minutes away. The GPS says 5 minutes. So I'm like, I'm not going to lie. And then they're like, oh, give him a McDonald's cup. And it was like the, at the time, the supersize, because they had supersize back in the day. It was a supersized cup with a, like empty, because there was like liquor in it. They threw liquor out the window. Throw up in that. Not even half a second flat. That thing was filled up, overflowing everywhere.
Oh God.
Yeah. Long story short, I ended up throwing up on everyone in the back seat, the 2 chicks in the front seat, and
it was like you took Epitaph, dude. You're just like, argh.
Yeah, it was like that Family Guy episode when everyone's just throwing up in the living room. Just but it was only me.
Did you still go into the club with your puke clothes?
The bad thing was they were turning off the exit, and they were just like, you fucking asshole. Just like killing me and destroying me in the back verbally. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. I told you.
So like everyone, you drove home from Baltimore covered in puke.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
then,
God.
Yeah, and then
the windows are broke, so they were up the whole time.
Yeah, the chicks. Obviously, the chick that was driving was Whitney. She was obviously pissed. Odessa, who I went to Northwest with, but randomly went to Lincoln at one point and then switched to Northwest. That's how I knew her. She was pissed. Obviously, my cousin and my boy at the time, Nick, was pissed. And yeah.
That kind of coincides with my story. When we came out of high school, but Matt's one of my really good friends, and Cam was one of my really good friends at the time. And I'm not sure if you guys don't know Cam. Cam is the type of dude that always has to like up people. Like he always has to like be big chested. Like, he always has to do the most. So Matt was having a party at his barn on the farm. And so Cam, we're just turned 18. So Cam decides he wants to flex for everybody and buy a 24-pack of Corona. And so he drinks not even half of them. He's probably 8 beers deep. And we're in the bar, and all of a sudden we see Cam on the bench inside the barn, like throwing up on the bench. So I said, Cam, what are you doing? Like we're on a farm. Go outside. Why are you throwing up on inside the barn? Go outside. You have all that space. So he stumbles outside, and as he's stumbling outside, he's like rattling against the barn. So me and Matt go out there and follow him. And as he falls to the ground, I see him do like one of these, like he motions down like with his hands like this. And I was like, that's kind of weird. So Matt goes outside. Matt takes a picture of him, and Matt comes back in and he goes, hey, Kyle, look at this. And I was like, what, dude? He was like, what is that? And there was a picture of Cam, and like right behind Cam on the rocks, there was like something like weird, like brown, whatever. And so we're like, dude. So we went out there, and Cam was literally pulled down his pants while he fell down, and so he was laying on the gravel outside, just pooping, just out onto the rocks, not even moving. And so so we all start laughing. So what Matt does is Matt goes and grabs the hose, and he starts shooting away everything, obviously. And so we took pictures during all this, and afterwards you come to find out that during the picture you could see Matt putting the hose on Cam's butt, and Cam actually spread his butt cheek open so he could get everything inside. But in the end all be all with that is that Cam ended up pooping himself again on Matt's couch later that night, and we weren't allowed to have parties anymore. I don't know what it is with people not being like. I've never crapped myself from drinking. Who does that?
Yeah, never.
Like pooping themselves. That's weird.
Right. Well, I did one time.
Meanwhile, Ian's sitting over there like, I'm gonna be quiet.
Absolutely.
Us Brits over here, we go ham. Absolutely, but that was a great time. And let's go to you, Reed. What's yours?
Oh man, I'm just gonna put this on now. My parents end up listening to this. Just turn it off. You already know. Just turn it on. You don't want to hear about your son doing dumb shit. So it was the night that one of my best friends in the world, we'll call him Marley, was leaving to move out to LA. So the night before, we all had a big thing in DC at a big club called Rose Bar, and then we went to some rave, and after the rave, we went back to some hotel, and me and Marley had always joked around about doing acid. This person had acid. They're like, just do it. Marley, I was drunk, and Marley's like, if I do it, you're doing it. And I was like, all right, cool, yeah, cool. So we don't even have a room in this hotel. We're literally sitting in the lobby, and we just drop acid. And about 40 minutes goes, nothing's happening. And maybe about 30 more minutes or so, it starts to kick in, of course. And so I just get up, and Marley's like, where are you going? And I just walk over to the ice machine. We're in a group of like 10 people, by the way, who are just waiting, I guess, to fuck with us. And I just start filling my pocket with ice. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's ice, man. It's the currency of the future. I'm going to be rich. And they're like, what? And I was like, I don't know. We got to get out of here. We got to call a cab. So we call a cab from DC to Germantown. Get lost like 4 times. So the cab fare's just running up and running up and running up. This is like right before Uber came out. And so finally we get to Pat Wilson's house in Germantown, and Marley the whole time is like, don't worry, I'm going to pay for the cab. Don't worry, I'm going to pay for the cab. And I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'm getting out. I need to be inside. I was just trapped in a cab for like 2 hours. This is my nightmare. And I go and I sit down in the house. About 10 minutes later, Marley comes in, and he comes in. He's like, I forgot. I was supposed to come in here and do something, but I don't remember what I was supposed to do. So I'm just going to sit. And he sat, and we started joking around and fucking with Pat, like pointing at him and poking him and being like, what kind of organism are you? Like, oh God, if you were my kid, I'd be so pissed that you grew up into you. Like, oh God, you like pee your pants and stuff. And so then we hear pounding on the door, and Marley turns and looks at me, and he's like, I was supposed to pay the cab driver. And I was like, oh, go pay him. And he's like, I don't know where my wallet is. And I was like, well, he's not going to go away. And he was like, I think he might. And he was like, maybe I already paid him and we forgot something. I was like, all right. And then he leaves. 30 minutes later, we hear more pounding on the door. And then this time we hear, open up, it's the police. And I was like, oh my God. So we go, we open the door. No, not at all. And we let them in, and they're like sitting there just like staring at me, like fucking talking to Marley. Marley's trying to find his card, can't find it, and just turns to the officer, and I shit you not, just looks at him. Oh no. He just looks at the officer and goes, paydays, almond joys, and Heath bars. And the officer goes, what? And he goes, I don't know. That's just a list of shitty candy bars. And the officer was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Finally, our other friend woke up and was like, what is this all about? Is this about money? Here, just take the money. Be gone. Get out. So finally he left. Then later that night, we ended up sleeping at Marley's house. I didn't. I had stared in the mirror for like 2 hours, 3 hours. And I go upstairs to Marley's room and I'm like, rise and shine. And I open the door and he has empty water bottles all around him and curled up napkins that he's been using. And he just goes and pulls the covers up. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, did you tell my mom that we were tripping? And I was like, why the fuck would I do that? No. And he goes, oh, all right, I must have thought it. And I was like, what? And that was my acid experience. Check that off the bucket list. Never do that again.
Dude, all your stories happen with Chris Marley. You two were inseparable.
That's where everything happens.
It's true. And that's
unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's why I didn't experiment with that stuff too much, dude, because I heard some bad stuff. I've seen some bad stuff happen to people on that. And that's why I don't mess with it. I'm sorry about that, Ian. Sorry, it's story time this week, brother. But I wanted to end today with, there are a couple videos got released. It seems like all the Redskins are back into lifting weights, and it got seen to Jimmy Moreland came out with a video yesterday to have him doing squats, and now Darius Geis was seen putting up almost 600 pounds on the squat machine. Reed, did you see this?
Time out before you go. My bad, Reed.
Yeah, go
Jimmy Moreland squatting.
Huh?
How much was Jimmy Moreland squatting? That's a tiny dude.
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's why I didn't say anything about how much he was weighing. but I do know that he was squatting.
I will tell you, you know that picture of Chase Young benching where like the bar's bent? It's like fucking 5 plates on each side or 6, 7 plates on each side. You know, that was only like 315. A couple of the plates weren't 45s; they're 25s. If you really look at it, so it's not as impressive. It's still fucking more than any of us can do, but it's not as impressive. But Jonathan Allen had that video of him squatting, and you were just like the bar. You just felt bad for the back of Jonathan Allen's neck. Like you were like, God, that's gonna hurt. But they're just crushing it, man. You're happy to see it, Darius Geis. You're happy to see him working his ass off. That guy, for whatever anybody wants to say, man, about his injury problems and whatnot, he has such a good work ethic, and he just seems like such a big media personality. Like social media loves him, the media loves him. So if he can just stay healthy and he can produce, he's going to be a darling in the NFL.
Yeah, dude, that Jonathan Allen video was absolutely crazy because you could see the arc of the bar and that thing dropping. Like, dude, they need a bigger bar. Like, you need a stronger bar. Like, oh my God, that really surprised me. I love the atmosphere that the Redskins players are giving off right now. They're like one-upping each other with these weightlifting videos, and I absolutely love that kind of competition before we even get into training camp.
Hold on, Ian, is it weird hearing us talk about the weights, because then you have to do the metric system in your head, and you're like, wait, 325 pounds, what the fuck is that? And
it's far too late
your guys
be converting anything like that.
It's like me being like, he's 6 feet tall, and you're like, 6 feet tall is how many meters? What is going on?
No, feet's good for me. Okay. Jonathan Allen one was amazing, wasn't it? And the good thing was about where you say about them working out and getting going. The fact that he had Tim Settle and Ryan Kerrigan there as well.
Kerrigan looked huge.
Spurring him on. Yeah. Spurring him on.
You could tell he's bulked up to play the D line. Yeah. He's definitely bulked up to play the defensive line.
Yeah, but that sort of teamwork's what the coaches are all about, isn't it? And if they can see that from what they're posting, that's just good for the future, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because to go to your point, like they're already showing competition between one another in a friendly way before they even get into the building. And that's my point is like, Ron Rivera is already rubbing off on people just by these Zoom meetings, just by having conversations with them. And so sky's the limit once he gets inside the building. Were you able to see that video, Hall?
Yeah, you literally actually just took my whole point and hit my whole point right on the head. I was going to say that whole like team camaraderie and team competition that they're already going at each other without even being in the building yet is like, it's just like, you know what? That's exactly what we've wanted for the past 20 years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I literally just can't wait to see what we have in store for this upcoming season. I know Dr. Fauci's talking about, oh, they got to be in a bubble and there's not going to be a season. Get out of here. I cannot wait until September comes and that season starts, and I think it's going to be good things for the Redskins going forward.
Hall, I really like your white guy voice.
Thank you. I've been working on it.
And well, yeah, that was very good. That was actually very good. Wait a minute. We talked about this a lot on here. For us, Ian, it's so normal to like hear one of us just randomly bust into like a British accent, isn't it? Like we just talk, it's not a big deal. It's not as good as normal people who talk like that, but it's not big. Can you do an American accent?
No, I'll go straight to Australian probably. No, I was
Well,
having
Australian's perfect too.
No, I'm not your man for accents. I can barely do an English one, let alone anything else.
So you're just like me, Ian. I'm terrible with accents. I can only imitate people, and that's why I was able to do Burrows. But I'm the one that gets the Australian twang in there whenever I do the British accent. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's about it for us this week. Unless you have something else you want to add, everybody.
Take a look here. I don't think that I do.
Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And Ian, I appreciate you. I know you stuck around a little bit during story time. I'm sorry about that, but thank you so much for joining us, dude.
Yeah,
Ian, we'll have to get you on here when there's actually more news going on, so that way we can talk football the entire time.
Yeah.
Because it was good having you, man. It was real good.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's been brilliant. I love watching the pod, and it's great to be a part of it.
Of course, it shows the dedication of you as well. I mean, how late it is over there right now, and you're still up here chugging. I see you drinking coffee, trying to stay awake, and I appreciate you doing that, Ian. I really do. You're a great guy.
Well, I haven't got anything important on tomorrow. It's only work, so.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the thank you so much for watching the podcast today. You can go and find us on Facebook, iTunes, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please go like and subscribe there, and then review us as well, so that way we get more exposure out in the world. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys. And let me tell you right now, you are not going to want to miss Tuesday's show. I'm going to tell you that right now. We got some big things on the way. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday. It's going to be a big colossal.
Yes, sir. Can't wait.
All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
Oh.
And I am a diabetic.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Redskins football. Woo!